We'll be beginning our round of questioning for the second panel with Mr. Muse. Mr. Muse, the floor is yours. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you to all the department officials for being here today again. Some of you are returning, I know. And I'm not sure who to direct this question to. Maybe we'll start with the Deputy Minister, or you can deflect to someone else if that's the subject matter expert. So I know in August when we had the meeting on the chaos at airports, the minister in that meeting cited the figures of flight delays and cancellations from that particular week and the week previous, and that there had been incremental improvement week over week. Do we know where we sit today in Canada's airports in terms of flight delays and cancellations, and how that compares with other jurisdictions?
Sure. Well, thank you for the question. I will, and I appreciate the invitation to refer to colleagues when necessary. There has been, Mr. Chair, the member is exactly right. There has been some significant progress starting around the third week of July, where the numbers began to turn. There was a very high rates of cancellations and delays at that time, and then so we've seen some significant improvements. And I'll give you an example. Toronto Pearson is down to 2% cancellations in the last week. Vancouver's down to 1.5%. Montreal Trudeau's 2.7%. Calgary's 0.6%. And that's running sort of in the neighborhood. It's slightly higher, but in the neighborhood of the rate of cancellations that we've seen before COVID. So the canceled flight rates, which were at one point well over 10%, have come way down to in about normal rates, slightly above. In terms of on-time performance, there's been significant improvements in on-time performance sort of across the system from the summer. The rate of delays has come down significantly. It is still staying a little bit higher than before 2019, and so it's part of the system continuing to come into balance. Depending on the day you look, there is the Canadian airports are usually they're not. There was a point where some of in the summer, the Canadian airports were in a tough position relative to other airports. They've seen their relative performance improve as we've come into the fall. So you see the system generally getting to a better passenger experience, where you're much more likely to get to the destination and much less likely to be delayed in the process therein.
How does that compare with other jurisdictions, the United States, for example, or Europe?
I think you can see, you'll see, for example, in I don't know if you take cancellations. The New York is at 0.5%. So Newark's at 0.5%. Chicago's at 0.5%. So those American airlines are still slightly ahead of airports are still slightly ahead of the Canadian airports. But you'll see Frankfurt, Beijing, places like that will typically be a little bit higher.
So you're citing some figures from 2019 and this past summer and maybe the past week or month, and in comparison to other jurisdictions. I wonder if you'd be willing to just table those with the committee as well, just so we have those in front of us as a reference for the future.
We'd be happy to send them along.
So one of the other things that we've studied as a committee, and I know that all federal departments are seized with this, is the labor shortages which are impacting the sector. We've heard at a committee here about 30,000 truckers short in the trucking industry, 50,000 short in the marine industry, another 50,000 short in the air sector going forward, or forecasting. So these are large numbers. So what are you concerned about that, and what are we doing to accelerate the pace of filling those gaps?
A very quick response, please.
I would say very quickly, this is an area of key concern for the Minister for Transport Canada and for all of our provincial colleagues in the transportation sector. There is a work between transportation sector officials and counterparts in immigration, employment, training and skills to get more people into the training programs to have those qualifications needed for the future growth of the industry in all of the sectors mentioned by the member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keenan, and thank you, Mr. Muse.